Welcome back here to X's and Bros on the Michigan Sports Network. Dana Cahalan, Brian Elke, Anthony Bellino, all joining you. Join us now. Columnist for the Pride of Detroit. His name is Mike Payton. You can find him on Twitter at POD_Payton. Mike, my friend, good morning to you, partner. How are you? How's life? How are things?
Things are good. I'm always happy to talk with you. Happy to be here.
Hey, it's great to have you on, and I saw something that it immediately sparked my interest, and I was like, yeah, I gotta get in touch with Mike and see what's going on here. But we'll get to that article in regards to should the Lions make a move for a one Jalen Ramsey from the LA Rams. We'll get to that momentarily, but first I want to start with the Defensive Rookie of the Year award, and Aidan Hutchinson listed as a finalist. You know, the odds favor that it's going to be Sauce Gardner. Looking at some of the statistics and what Aidan was able to do versus Sauce, is this more or less just Lions fans, clamoring that, hey, let our guy be Rookie of the Year? Is this more like, hey, Sauce had a really good year. He was the highest ranked cornerback according to Pro Football Focus. He got a nod to the All-Pro team, first time that's happened since 1981 for a rookie at that position. He was really good, or is there a little bit of New York bias here? Because everybody loves the Big Apple. What do you think's going on here? What do you think is like the legitimate outcome of that race?
Look, I mean, any other year, Aidan Hutchinson is the absolute for sure Rookie of the Year. Walking away, no problem. It's easy. But you got a guy in Sauce Gardner who did something that rookies just don't do. I mean, he's the best cornerback in the entire league. I know he doesn't rack up interceptions, and I know that that's he doesn't have the style points and all the things that people want to see on the box score. But this is a guy that in his rookie year, quarterbacks were afraid to throw toward. When the Lions played the New York Jets earlier in the season, or late in the season, wherever you want to say at this point, Jared Goff didn't even throw his way. I mean, Jared Goff did not even throw a way of a rookie cornerback. That's how good this kid is. And he's as you mentioned, the highest rated rookie in all of Pro Football Focus. He's an all-pro corner already. He's a Pro Bowler. The guy's got it. It's in the bag. I think, there's always anything can happen, obviously. And Aidan Hutchinson certainly put up a lot of amazing numbers and had a very, very good year that Lions fans should be totally proud of. But Sauce Gardner is probably going to walk away with that Rookie of the Year award.
Well, he already got the Pro Football Writers Association Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year awards, by the writers. So that has already happened, and we're still kind of waiting for the NFL honors. And it's not as if he plays for the Jets, that's whatever. But he is a homegrown product out of Martin Luther King High School. So I think that is something that we could kind of hang our hats on, going to Cincinnati and playing his college ball there, and the Detroit native becoming one of the best, if not the best corner in the game in year number one is very, very impressive. For Aidan Hutchinson, the individual numbers, as you kind of pointed out there, he would run away with this award any other year. Those individual numbers that he had and how he affected the entirety of the defensive line and opportunities for other guys on that team is something that really stood out to me as more and more teams. I think we saw the Commanders do it early in the season. In their second half, they said, look, we got to change some things around. We got to focus on Big 97. They're coming off the edge. And a lot of other teams schemed against him as well. And that really opened up a lot of opportunities for everyone else. And I think that is a great sign for this Lions defense moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think if anybody was going to vote for Hutchinson to win the Rookie of the Year, when it comes to the AP guys, it's the fact that he did have some of those big plays. He had a lot of things that you could put in highlights and Sports Center and all this. He had the plays that Sauce Gardner just didn't have. But at the end of the day, I mean, you just can't go against Sauce. It's unbelievable what this kid did this year. But yeah, any other year, it's Hutchinson.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. I was hoping I might trick you into something there, but no. I mean, that's your, the honest opinion. We appreciate honesty, and now I got to go another direction here with you, Mike. You put out this article. I immediately clicked it. I couldn't read it fast enough. It's like, how many words per minute can you read? Let's get through this thing. Should the Lions go after Jalen Ramsey? Where do you think that this comes from? Is it because of the ties with the Rams and the Lions now that, when Ramsey throws out something, cryptic at the end of the season on Twitter, because so many athletes do, if this is the end, then, I went out with a bang or whatever he said. Is it because of those ties in the front office that there is a familiarity there, with, a little bit of more maybe so than other franchises might have? Is it because that they own that Rams pick and the Rams don't have any first-round picks until the year of 2150? What is it that makes this Jalen Ramsey to the Lions, I guess, more talked about for Detroit than other franchises across the league?
Well, yeah, I think it's the connectivity with the Rams that the Lions have, obviously with Brad Holmes, Roy Agnew, but I think it works on two different levels. The first level being that, yes, there is that connectivity there. The guys like Agnew, they know Jalen Ramsey. Todd Wash, who is the Lions defensive lineman coach, he coached Jalen Ramsey when he was in Jacksonville. He was Jalen Ramsey's first defensive coordinator. So there's a lot there, but also if you're looking at the way that the Rams built their team, while Brad Holmes and Agnew were both on staff there, this is what they kind of did. After a couple of years, they started moving around assets. They felt that they had the pillars of the team that they were ready to build around, and then they started going and moving to get some of those bigger players. Now, if that's what Brad Holmes is planning to do, then why not go ahead and get the one of the best corners in the league? We talk about Sauce Gardner being the highest rated corner on Pro Football Focus. Well, Jalen Ramsey's right there at number 3. So you're going ahead and you're getting one of the best corners in the league. This isn't a guy that's aging. This isn't a guy whose career is moving in a downward trend. This guy his play speaks for itself. He's still the man. So you're obviously able to get him at this point because you have that connectivity with the Rams. Because the Rams are a team that has not had a first round pick since they drafted Jared Goff, and they're currently sitting there without a first round pick this year, obviously because they traded that. But after that they don't have a 4th, they don't have a 5th. They have 3 6-rounders. They have a 2nd and a 3rd, and this team could be very well on its way to a rebuild now that they got the Super Bowl. They topped out. They got Matthew Stafford. There's questions about his spinal injury. There's questions about whether or not Aaron Donald might retire. I know there was some stuff on his Twitter not long ago where he said he was a former Rams defensive lineman, and there's always these questions about whether or not Sean McVay is ready to go. So the Rams are very clearly on their way to a rebuild. So maybe they want that first round pick, and maybe the Lions might have to throw in a little bit more. Maybe they might have to throw in a 5th round pick, or maybe something. I don't know what that would be, but I think the 18th pick would probably be good enough to get themselves, the 3rd best corner in the league.
Wow. So the Lions then would be able to keep number 6 and move 18 potentially for Jalen Ramsey, and that deal might have to get spiced up with some of the other draft capital. But that, do you think that 18 might be viable for Jalen Ramsey? I think that is very interesting. How does that mix then with what they want to do or what they may do with a guy like Jeff Okudah? Because that's really kind of the next big question mark. Because he is entering that time frame, of do you extend him? Do you allow him to get through the process and wait until after this year? And I don't know exactly what the right move is there because we just haven't seen enough of him in the injury. If he comes back and plays like he did this year for a majority of his career, the injuries almost actually help the Lions from a salary cap standpoint.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing because, this is a guy who was in his 3rd year of his career this year, although he's really only played like 20 games. So he essentially was a rookie this year, and he kind of looked like it. There was some times where you would go, wow, this kid, I think he had like 11 tackles in one game early on in the season. Was great in the run game. He made some big plays, picked off Justin Fields in that win over the Bears. There was a lot to like from what you saw in Okudah, but then as the season went on, he got benched a couple times near the end of the season. Especially, I think he got benched against Green Bay. That wasn't good. He got benched against Carolina a couple weeks before that. There was some trouble in that second game against the Bears. So I think if anything, Okudah still has some rookie rust to shake off, but he's shown that he should at least be good enough to be the 2nd quarterback or cornerback on your team. I just don't think he's ever going to be that number 1 guy.
So then the big question, I think most people have kind of we've kind of written off Amani Oruwariye at this point. Like he will be, he'll be an off-season casualty to this roster, and maybe a new venue for him might be kind of a little bit of a career resurgence after a massive step back from what we saw in 2021. 2022 just wasn't his year.
Yeah, it's a shame. This is the guy who had 6 interceptions last season and looked like he was very much on his way. And I know, when the Lions drafted him, it was a steal. Like he shouldn't have been there. He was a guy that probably should have went a lot earlier. But yeah, it's just not working out. And good luck to him. I think that this is he's still a very young player. He still can catch on somewhere, and I'm sure he's going to have a career out of him. But it's just unfortunately not going to be in Detroit.
What did you make of the secondary play there in the second half of this season? Because it felt like, in that 1-7 start, it was like teams pulled into the parking lot and boom, there was 21 points on the board before he even kicked off, right? I mean, the defense was just struggling. They move away from Aubrey Pleasant, more of a role, hands-on positionally for Aaron Glenn. Something seemed to click for this team where top to bottom, I mean, it was the front 4 and the front 7 making plays in the run game and getting after quarterbacks. It all works in sync. When people talk about complementary football, yes, we know offense, defense, special teams, but complementary football is also being able to pressure the quarterback to lighten the load on the back 4, and also the back 4 being able to cover so that your front 4 can actually get to the quarterback. It all works in sync here in the NFL. I guess what was maybe one of the big things that stood out to you and the biggest difference maybe for this defense in their change there about midway through the season?
Well, I think the biggest thing really is that, when Aubrey Pleasant was dismissed by the team, Aaron Glenn sort of took over a little bit more in that defensive back area. And this is a guy that's former defensive back coach, former defensive back in the NFL himself. And I think what he was bringing was immediately rubbing off. And also, we mentioned Amani Oruwariye getting benched and Jeff Okudah getting benched, and they weren't the only guys that got benched. Deshaun Elliott saw the bench, and some of these guys, they came back and they responded correctly. And Elliott got a lot better in the second half. They finally got Jerry Jacobs off the injury report and got him back in, and he showed some big stuff. I mean, there's still a lot to be cleaned up there, but yeah, there was a lot of change, and I think that Aaron Glenn taking over more of the duties in that defensive back room, as well as obviously being the DC of the team, is really something that made a big change there. And the Lions will be lucky if they're able to keep him. We'll see what happens here too.
So, do you believe that the Lions, with that 6th overall pick, let's say they stay put, right? No trade is made. Ramsey's not added. We stay at 6-18. There's no movement whatsoever. It's par for the course. Although I don't believe that's really what will happen on draft day, because Brad Holmes is pretty crafty. We saw that last year. But what do you think that they do at 6? What do you believe that they do at 18? Should they focus on the defensive side? Or, if a guy like Bijan Robinson is there at running back at either one of those spots, do you take him immediately because you think that he could be, that running back that could have, a Pro Bowl caliber career for years to come?
I think that, basically what's going to happen with that 6th pick is what's going to happen around them. Our team's going to be trading up to get the Bryce Youngs of the world, the C.J. Strouds. There's going to be a lot of quarterback needy teams. I know that a lot of people aren't too hype on the idea that a guy like Will Anderson or Jalen Carter could potentially fall to the Lions. But when teams trade up, it's very possible that something like that could happen. I think obviously one of those guys goes number 1 overall, but you've got some guys like Miles Murphy and again Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, Brian Br0's. There's a lot of defensive linemen that could fall to them at number 6, and I definitely think they go that route. If they decide not to trade that 18th pick for Jalen Ramsey or for anyone else in that matter, I think that's a perfect spot to get themselves one of the great corners. They'll probably miss out on Witherspoon, who is a guy that Lions fans are really in love with at the moment. But they should have a chance at Christian Gonzalez from Oregon, or Joey Porter Jr. or Kelly Ringo. There's a lot of great corner talent in this draft, and then at that 18th spot, that's about where they should all land.
So then, where Mike Payton does this team, this is a topic we get, in a question we get every day of the week. It doesn't matter what day of the year it is. It doesn't matter what season of the year it is. Quarterback. Jared Goff, he played at a top 10 level this season. He was absolutely dynamite in that second half of the year. I mean, you look at his numbers, and he was up there with the best of them. So what do they do? What should they do this draft when it comes to the quarterback position?
I think that, you're set. You've got your quarterback of the future. I know that Lions fans, there's some of them, just don't want to believe that Jared Goff is their guy. But what Jared Goff did this year is it's not easy to do. I mean, he was top 10 and just about top 5, top 6 in just about every major category you'd want your quarterback to be in. Didn't throw an interception from week 9 on. Like, this was a very, very good performance from this guy. So he's your guy. If you want to draft a backup quarterback, which they should do, I think, there's a chance for that. You can maybe get a guy like Stetson Bennett late in the draft, or the guy from TCU, Max Duggan, maybe somebody like that late in the draft that you can develop. Maybe you see what you got, but I don't think that they should be taking shots at quarterbacks early in the draft, especially when Jared Goff is only 28 years old and is under contract for a while. Just stick with what you got. It's working.
And I thought that Brad Holmes' statement of it's a whole lot easier to get worse at quarterback than it is to get better, I thought that was pretty telling. I mean, if I was Jared Goff and I heard that, I would feel real comfortable sleeping at night.
Absolutely. I mean, when you're a GM or and you're doing a rebuild and you decide to go the route to draft a quarterback, your entire career, everything is hinged on whether or not that one guy is going to be good. You've got one shot at it. If you mess it up, you're gone. You see teams, they're firing GMs and head coaches every year. It's not hard for that to happen. So you better hitch your wagon to the right guy. And Lions don't have to have that issue because they have a quarterback.
Oh, I love that, Mike. I do. And I hope that more people get on board with this idea that the level of play that we saw from Jared Goff, I mean, that should stand out to all Lions fans. Last one here for you real quick. I did see Super Bowl odds for the upcoming season. The Lions were somewhere around the top 10. The fact that they're even around the top 10 and the best odds, the fact that Ben Johnson decided he wanted to come back and be the offensive coordinator instead of pursuing other head coaching jobs. For the first time in my lifetime, the belief seems legitimate. It feels as if that I'm justified in believing what I'm believing, and I'm not just guzzling the Kool-Aid, a beer bong at a time.
No, I mean it is the real deal. The Lions rebuild is going just about as well as it could. I mean, this team is well on its way to being one of the better teams in the league, and you see the rest of this division. It's not getting any better around here. Aaron Rodgers has got one foot out the door. Not that he matters anymore because the Lions took him out twice this year. So it is what it is with that. But I think you're seeing a changing of the guard in the NFL as a whole after this year, because you look at all these teams that were in the playoffs, like the Cowboys and the Vikings and the Giants and some of these other teams that are about to be left with a bunch of free agents and not a whole lot of money to spend on them. I think you're going to see a lot of differences. I think you're going to see teams like the Lions and the Jags and some of these other teams, the Carolina Panthers maybe too. And I think you're going to see a lot of these teams that are going to start creeping up and suddenly be the class of the league. And it's crazy to even think that would be something that you'd say about the Lions. But, this team is hot and it is very good offensively. And if they can have themselves a good offseason and build that defense up even more, the sky's really the limit. I think this is an NFC North championship team next year for sure. We'll see what happens when they get in the playoffs.
He is Mike Payton. Find him on Twitter at @POD_Payton, writing for the Pride of Detroit, also co-host of the Bad Boys and Beyond. Mike, my friend, as always, thank you so much for the time this morning, partner. We greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely, Andy. Thanks for having me.